Iowa City Foreign Relations Council. I also direct the Global Health Program at the university. As you know, the Iowa City Foreign Relations Council is a community organization that brings weekly speakers to Iowa City, and they talk on topics of international issues, on world issues. And we thank our members, our volunteers, you folks, for all their dues and contributions that have helped to maintain this forum for 3 decades. If you're not already a member or wish to join or donate, you can do so after the session at the back table. I also want to acknowledge the formal support we get from our university and community partners. The University of Iowa Honors Program and the University of Iowa's international programs both contribute time and talent and logistics that are vital to our organization. The University of Iowa Community Credit Union and Midwest Bank One are also sponsors for today's lecture, and we appreciate their support. As you know, I'm sure the format will be my introduction of the speaker's remarks, and then there will be time to answer questions. You can write your questions on cards that are on your table. They'll be collected in, and we'll have a question answering period after the speaker has finished. People that need to leave for other things can go out before that period, and so it'll be 15 minutes for that. So let me now turn to the speaker that we have. Balu, as we know, is the founder of one of India's largest developmental organizations, the Swami Vivekananda Youth Movement. This has an enormous number of activities in areas of health and education, predominantly with the indigenous people living, for the most part, in the forests in Karnataka around Mysore. We have a special relationship with SVYM. It has been a host for our South India program for over 10 years, and more recently we've set up an interdisciplinary health program based on one of the hospitals that Balu's group built essentially in the jungle for these deprived people. And it's about that organization, what they're doing, that Balu is going to talk to us now. So Balu.
Thank you, Chris. I'm indeed honored to be here and share some of my experiences. Possibly experience is a very incomplete word to describe my journey over the last 30 years. What started off as possibly an opportunity to discover myself, as I don't think I've completed a journey yet, but it's at least reassured me that I'm on the path which is what I started out for. So what I would like to speak now for maybe 15-20 minutes or till Chris reminds me to stop, is to share this journey, how I started, what happened along the way, and see it from a dimension and perspective that I see it from. I would like you to go back 28 years. I was a very young 19-year-old, so much older, 17-year-old, 30 years ago, when I was first inspired by this extraordinary man's writings. He was a monk who lived in the 19th century. He became very popular and very well known because he came to the United States. As it happens with everything in India, anything foreign is important to us. And when this man came to the United States, to Chicago, specifically to address the Parliament of Religions, and he brought in a message of universal tolerance and acceptance. And I would just like to describe him the way Professor John Wright, the then chair of history, I think, from the Harvard University, described him. Vivekananda was a monk who didn't know the ways of the Western world. And he just thought, like most of us Indians, we want to call a friend, you want to see a friend, you just drop in. You don't even bother to call or tell them you're coming, right? You just go in. But I've learned it last 30 years of coming to the US repeatedly. I've learned that you got to call them, you got to make sure they want you, and then you go. Poor Vivekananda in 1893 didn't realize it. He just left India and came here thinking, oh, he's going to be very welcome to talk about Hinduism with a universal perspective. Everybody's out to listen to him. comes and lands in Chicago to realize that he doesn't even have an invitation. And so he's sitting in a park, very cold, like the way I'm feeling nowadays now here, without even a regular coat to wear. A very elderly lady took pity on him and then takes him home and mothers him, gives him a coat, and then says, well, you can't go do all this in the United States. You need an introduction. You need to be invited. And to be invited, you better know somebody important. Very disheartened, he leaves, and on the train, he meets an extraordinary woman, Kate Sanborn was her name, who was very inspired by him, and because of his inspiration, she says, why don't you just come home? I live near Boston, why don't you just drop in there? And poor Vivekananda is running out of money, so he sees his invitation as a lifeline, more than anything, just a free place to stay. Goes there, and she is a very well-connected woman who gives this introduction to this Professor John Wright at Harvard. And John Wright just talks to him for 20 minutes. I'm giving this introduction to explain the kind of inspiration I got from this man. John Wright writes like this. He says to the chairman of the Parliament of Religions, he says, here is a man who is more intelligent than all the professors of the United States put together. Asking him for an introduction or the right to speak is like asking the sun its right to shine. And of course, and John Wright is a very big name, and rest was history. And this man spoke. His speech, it's unfortunately was not recorded. He spoke, the first speech he gave at the Parliament of Religions was exactly 210 seconds long. The response it got, just people, the ovation it got lasted 5 minutes, much longer than his speech even. And then he went on to become a very famous figure. He is the one who actually showed what a great religion Hinduism was to the West, and showed it not as a religion but as a way of life. So my inspiration comes from him, where specifically I was 17, I was lost, I was wanting to start my professional education, didn't really get what I wanted to do in life, so just took what came along. And in India we have something called the equivalent of hazing here. I don't know if hazing still is continues in the universities here, but we have a very vulgar, crude and a very dangerous form of hazing called ragging. It can be very terrifying to an young student, so much so that the Indian Supreme Court has ordered the government many years ago to pass laws which has now made ragging illegal. So students can't engage in it in campuses anymore, because many students have even committed suicide after that. That's the level which it can go. And after that the laws became very strict. It's a very strict situation now. But when I was an undergrad, just about to enter my career, those things didn't exist. So I was so badly hazed or ragged, I didn't have the courage to go back to school next day. So I just walking along found this extraordinary ashram, or a religious holy place, like a church, founded by Vivekananda, called the Ramakrishna Mission. I just straddled along, went into the library. The next 2 months changed my life. His philosophy, what attracted me to him, was very simple. At 17, you don't care about God. You don't want God in your lives at that time. You want so many other stuff. You want God to do a lot of stuff for you, but you don't want God. And I was exactly the same way, like any other 17 anywhere else in the world. And I started reading his books. What really attracted me to him was some sayings like these. His whole philosophy revolved around seeing God in man. It didn't matter what you call that God. You could call him Jesus Christ, you could call him Allah, you could call him Krishna, you could call him just about any name that you wanted to call him. But all that mattered, he said, if you can't see God in man, there's no point in worshipping God at all. And that was something which appealed to me. And so he writes to say, I do not believe in a God or religion which cannot wipe away the widow's tears or bring a piece of bread to the orphan's mouth. Now I was fascinated. I thought, if this is what religion is all about, I'd rather be religious from now on. If it can teach me take a piece of bread to an orphan's mouth or wipe away some distressed person's tears, well, that's a religion I want. It's not a religion where you sit in a temple or you sit in a church or you sit and pray and only worry about yourself and your God. It makes no sense to others around you. And he writes further to say, he talks directly to the young of India. And you must remember, this is more than 120 years ago. Next year, we're celebrating the 150th birth anniversary of this extraordinary man. Whole country now celebrates his birthday as a national youth day. He died very young. He died when he was 39 years old. His active life was only 7 years. He also writes to say, I call every young man a traitor who, having been educated at people's expense, pays not the least heed to them. So all my education were in state schools. And I thought this guy wrote this stuff only for me. I've been educated in state schools, and if I'm not going to do something about it, then I don't think I'm doing my job. I must be a traitor to my country. And when I was going through all this enormous stuff, there are 2 small books of his. Apart from a lot of stuff he's written, he used to write very well in English, write and speak very well in English. That's why he was very popular in the United States. 2 small books. One was called His Call to the Nation and to the Youth of India. Those books changed my life. Now, a lot of these stories are on my blog, so I'll not get into the stories, I'll get back into the life with the indigenous communities. So 84, 82, I got inspired by him. I went and joined a medical school in a nearby city from my hometown. I never been to an Indian village all my life till then. Not much later did I go to an Indian village. 84, as a student, as a young medical student, disgusted at what I saw as a practice of medicine around me. That's a time when corporatization of Indian healthcare started. It started much earlier for you guys, but it was very sad, very painful, and I thought this is not something I want to be a part of. I don't want to be part of a fraternity which profited from sickness. I wanted to be something different, and my inspiration came from this extraordinary man. And I wanted to drop out of the medical course. I really, in a sense, was an escapist, was a coward. I thought, oh, it's not going to work for me, I'm not meant for this, let me get away. But then once you're inspired by this man and his work, he says, you are the maker of your own destiny in one place. I sat back and said, I'm not going to have somebody decide my destiny for me, I'm going to do it myself. So if I can't find a place where I can practice medicine ethically, rationally, and with compassion, I'll do something about it myself. So that is how led to my starting this organization named after him. So it's called Swami Vivek. Swami just means a monk in India. Swami Vivekananda Youth Movement. I wanted it to be a set of, pardon my grey hairs now, I can't help it. But when I started, I can assure you I was young. So, and I thought it had to be a movement. It couldn't end with one person. This idea has to spread. It has to go beyond boundaries, borders. And that's pretty much why I keep traveling a lot nowadays. I'll end my talk with what I'm doing now. And 87, immediately after my graduation, we have to work in rural areas as part of the process of graduating. So I chose to work in a hospital which I had not yet built, but an extraordinary professor of public health who had endorsed my working there. And so he decided to sign off on an imaginary hospital I had spoken to him about, and he supported me to that imaginary hospital and said, go work there. So I went, and that was the beginning of possibly the most adventurous part of my life. I had never been to a village, leave alone a forest. These are communities called tribals in India. I'm not sure if it's a politically correct word in the United States, but they're indigenous communities. But our constitution gives them a special status, and they call the scheduled tribes. And so we use the word tribals. They are forest-based people, anthropologically distinct, socially distinct, culturally very different from the rest of us. They don't have a language, they only have a dialect, so they speak. 8% of India's population is home to these indigenous communities across the country. As you all know, I saw a lot of questions about India here, and thankfully one question that is missing is, what do you think is India's population? Well, we're nearly 1.2 billion now. Huge. And I think it's a great opportunity. I don't see it as a problem. I see it as an extraordinary opportunity because India is the youngest country in the world. So it suits my dreams. It works well for me. 58% of Indians today are less than 20 years. Possibly cannot get a younger India. That is why most American universities are making a beeline to India. Because we have young people, and we have young people with money who can pay full tuition, like this says. And 80% of Indians are less than 40. So most Indians are productive. And to me, it's an exciting time to be in, because if India doesn't decide to care for those who are not fortunate within India, then we are going to lose out on opportunities soon, because in 30 years from now, we are going to be a nation of very old people. And India is not growing at the rate at which it can reproduce enough to keep the young people going. And it really matters to me because India is burdened with 25% of the world's poor. Despite all the growth that we see, despite all the modernization that's happening, it's sad that we have 30 states in India, just 8 of these states in India have more poor people in absolute numbers than the total people living in the continent of Africa itself. So we have a huge poverty burden, and we need solutions, and we have to find them fast. And to me, the next 20-25 years, when we have this young productive population who can generate wealth, is possibly the best time where this wealth can be distributed equitably and compassionately for us to take care of our poverty issues. I don't believe that we always need we need helping hands. But if those hands are within the country, it makes it much more meaningful and much more owned by people there. So my work, when I started, was just to take healthcare because that is what I was competent in. I thought that's the best way to go about it. So I started my work living with these tribals, just running a small clinic. I can't even call it a clinic, it looks too big a word. It was a small hut. Half my hut was my residence. I have a cloth screen in between. So when I open the screen, my hospital is open. When I close the screen, the other half is my hospital. So the screen decided my personal and private life. I thought of my professional and personal lives were divided by the piece of cloth, which is a joke. Because most of the time the cloth wouldn't be there. And it was fun. And that's how my journey started. And I went there with the arrogance of believing that I was there to take care of these people. Soon enough, I learned that these people they had 50,000 anthropological history. It was absolutely ridiculous for me to think that the 150-year-old science that has just emerged as medicine today, I could go take care of these people. But since that is what I was competent in, I went and ran a hospital for them. And very short few days, I realized these guys don't need a hospital. They don't care a damn about health. They're more worried about their next meal, not even the next day's meal. And so I thought, how do I get these people to have a next meal? And so one thing led to the other. I started schools, I started livelihood programs, I started educational programs for them. I was doing a lot of stuff which I was not even competent to be doing. But then I was learning to be a human being. So that was the greatest journey of discovery for myself. And I realized development cannot exist in one dimension. Most of the time we are all comfortable and convenient in operating from a zone of competence. What I learned in life is to be challenged to operate from a zone of incompetence. I'm sure most of you sitting here, I can be quite provocative with this statement, don't even know what it is to operate from your zone of competence. We are professors of this, professors of that, I'm expert in this, I'm a PhD in that, and we are also comfortable in our own small worlds that we don't see the world larger than what we have made it out to be. And operating from a zone of incompetence, I think, is critical to leadership today, and that's a leadership I teach now. And that's what these tribals taught me. Every day, these are people who were destroyed by a government which didn't understand them. They were living in a forest. There are 5 different anthropological tribal groups I worked with. There were people who had access to 30 different kinds of tubers. So all the calorie they wanted was in the forest. They had access to 160 different kinds of greens. So they didn't have to know what is iron deficiency anemia. They had access to all the berries and roots you could get in the forest. They had access to all the wild boars and the deer and the meat that they could enjoy. But here is a government which comes and says, oh my poor people, you are poor. You can't live uncivilized lives inside the forest. I'll civilize you. And they bring them out of the forest, bringing in laws they don't understand or comprehend, and say, in the name of creating national parks, uproot these indigenous communities from the lives they have known, bring them outside the forest, not only declare the area as a national park, but also build 4 reservoirs. Why? Because we need to develop. So development is very, very focused and measured, unfortunately, by economic and econometric terms. So I have a very fundamental disagreement in the way the Western world interprets development. I am a product of Harvard, so I had arguments there, I had fun there, and obviously I'm liked because they keep inviting me for lectures there. So I think we are all very sadly looking at human progress and measuring it just by money. These people have taught me that money is possibly one of the tools you need, or possibly a currency you need to just transact in society. But more than that, I don't see a bigger utilization than that. But there's so much more you can do as human beings to live one with nature, understand the way you can actually move positively ahead without destroying it, giving as much as taking. And that's the greatest lesson I learned from these indigenous communities. Unfortunately, all that is getting lost all over the world. All over the world, indigenous communities are being seen as problems to be solved with tools of development that we all think will work everywhere. Very short-sightedly, most governments subscribe to it. I was then fascinated. They don't even invite me to such meetings anymore because they don't like to hear these voices anymore. The Rio Plus conference recently, they couldn't even agree on all these things. And we are all going a path, I believe, it's my view, that we don't even know where we're going to go. We don't even seem to know our destinations anymore. And these people know it. And these people have I've written a lot about it, so I'm just going to, like I said, I'm trying to make sure that I have enough time to complete what I want to say and without getting too much into the stories. But I would like to particularly narrate two small stories. Two stories which shaped my thinking in life and keeps giving me the energy to keep going after these things. It was maybe 25 years ago. I was there as a young physician wanting to be accepted by this community. I thought I wanted a sense of identity, I wanted affirmation from these people. You know, you are this romantic guy, you watch these movies, these guys go to Africa or into interior India, people welcome them, worship them, make them gods, right? These guys didn't do anything like that to me. So I was getting nervous. I'm here, and please understand, my whole family lives in the United States. I'm the only one, unfortunately, back home in India. A lot of pressure on me at that age to migrate, to come back here. Most Indian physicians land up here. I'm sure many of you have Indian doctors here for you. And I had to leave at some point. I said no, and I left to the forest. A big disappointment to my family personally. I thought this young doctor was going to make a lot of money, but this guy just throws away a career. And I had a very, very bright academic career. I was in the top 3 or 4 of my university. And I just walked away from it all. I thought I deserved a little more recognition and respect. And these guys didn't even bother because it didn't matter to them. Because they didn't need a doctor. I thought they needed a doctor because that's what I was good at. So I thought these guys have to accept me. And in my pursuit to getting accepted, I would go meet as many people and try to reaffirm and say, I'm a doctor. Are you sick? Let me take care of you. And the funny is, isn't it? The only way you can affirm yourself as a physician is when others are sick. Because if others are healthy, they won't even notice you. Like, why would you even bother about a physician if you're healthy? And so I had to make sure somebody falls sick somewhere. Sick enough for them to need me. And somebody had donated a gifted a very old Second World War broken down Jeep. Nowadays Jeeps are it's a nice popular vehicle here, but I see it's a very nice one. But it's falling apart in every place. It actually used in the Second World War in India by the British. So they just thought it's a liability for somebody to give it off to me, and I stupidly took it. I now know, this old saying, never look a gift horse in the mouth, but I don't agree. You better look at every gift horse in the mouth. That donation taught me that. And I was going around, I saw a group of 20 women sitting and talking. And I thought, this is a great opportunity. 20 people in one place, captive audience, go announce, I'm a doctor. And after doing a little bit of 30-second elevator pitch, I asked them, anybody sick around here? Can I do something for you guys? After some amount of small talk, these women suddenly looked around and suddenly one lady remembered, oh yes, that lady out there in that house, she told me a 6-month-old baby has got some diarrhea. Oh, I didn't care whether the diarrhea was cured or not, I wanted the baby and the woman out. I brought them and I made them sit there. And I was trained, I was taught in medical school. Chris will all agree with me, global health programs taught me. WHO announced it as the discovery of the century. A simple thing like oral rehydration, which could actually save millions of lives. That's what I was taught. And I thought I got to download the whole stuff on this indigenous tribal lady. So I went around, came down on her like a ton of bricks and told her, oh, you don't have to worry about this diarrhea. All you got to do is go to the corner, tube well, get a liter of water, boil it, cool it, throw in salt, throw in sugar and all the stuff. And then what do we tell her? The icing on the cake when we tell these patients is you taste it. And if it tastes like your tears, that's the right composition. Now, do any of us even taste our tears? But then you tell these people that. And this lady was very patient with me. She heard me out. And finally asked me, but then how much is a liter? Now, I would like to challenge all of you. Try describing 1 liter to somebody who has no concept or need for measuring anything in life. It's a handful of this or a handful of that, but it's never been a liter of anything. She doesn't need to. And now she doesn't live in a market economy where everything is measured. You're 640 ml of Pepsi and 20 ml more. Now, as it's very important to get 20 more ml in a can of some fizz drink that we all think will change our lives. But so it doesn't matter to her. She just lived that way. And I just couldn't. What will you tell her? 1000 ml? I just didn't know. I lost out. Then it suddenly struck me. Thankfully, I still had some humility left in me at that point of time. And I thought, well, if these people are doing this, there must be something. They have lived through 50,000 years. The very fact they have survived 50,000 years, maybe because they didn't have doctors, I don't know. Must have been that something has been working for them. Something has worked. They must have had diarrheas. Some of them might have died, some of them have lived. And if they have lived, they have some coping mechanism. Can I figure out what is their coping mechanism? How do they manage? And what she told me was the beginning of an extraordinary learning journey for me, which is still continuing. And I'm writing about it, hopefully. The next time I'm talking in audiences like this, my book will be out, and so you can all buy it. And that this lady told me, oh, we do nothing. I asked her, what do you do when you have a diarrhea? She said, so I answered it so beautifully. Oh, we do nothing. I just spend a rupee. A rupee is our currency. On the corner store, we have petty shops, small shops. I don't think I have to go back and take pictures of them, because this last week, Indian government decided to allow the Walmarts and Targets in. So I'm not sure how many corner stores are going to even exist anymore, but anyway. She said, I'll go to the corner store, buy 50 paise worth of, a paise is a cent for you, but much less. 52 rupees is what is $1. You can take as a long way in India. So I buy 50 paise worth of a banana and 50 paise worth of what we call flattened rice. It's some rice that you ate here, but it's flat. They flatten the rice and then boil it. And I asked her, what do you do with it? She had a very simple answer. She said, I powder the rice, mix it in the banana and feed my baby. Now, what was I telling her? I was asking her to throw in sugar, salt, mix it in water and make sure it tastes like tears and then give it to this baby. If the baby is having diarrhea and you make it drink it, I'm sure it'll start throwing up also. The kind of taste that tears taste. But look at what she was giving. She was giving a banana mixed with this flattened rice. Now what does it have? It's got, the rice is carbohydrate, complex, some of the complex carbohydrate breaks down over time, starch. Banana has got sugar, 80% water. More importantly, it's got sodium, it's got potassium, and it tastes so wonderfully well. A 6-month-old child will actually swallow it if you feed it to it. And she had this miracle cure, which has got everything that I was speaking about. 50,000 years of knowledge, WHO didn't notice. And they call this the discovery of the century, and they said this is all not good stuff. You've got to buy it in a sachet, in a medical store, from a pharmacy, dispensed by a doctor, and then you'll get better. I thought, this is not the healthcare I want to practice. I want to learn health from these people. These people are a treasure house of knowledge, and that's how my learning started. So I had experiences like this in health, education, a lot of stuff. But the next experience I narrate is more painful for me. I normally don't narrate this, but I think I can do it in the place of God. I'm already pardoned to keep narrating the story. This was I was maybe within 2-3 months of my being there, and again this quest to be affirmed and recognized as a physician. Somebody came and told me there's a 14-year-old child who was pregnant and about to deliver. Now indigenous communities like the tribals I worked with then, 30 years ago, had no structured marriage. They just cohabit, live together, they get pregnant, God help them. And this child was pregnant. She's a child, she's not, I can't even call her a mother, was pregnant with the first baby, and she was in labor. So I thought, I loved obstetrics. That's a passion I had. If I hadn't possibly done all that I did, I would have been an obstetrician. I was intelligent enough not to do my obstetrics, but marry one. So my wife in proxy does a lot of stuff that I would have loved to do. And I thought I should go deliver this child. And I went there to her house, small hut, around 6:30 in the evening. All the problems of elephants and wild boars and leopards and tigers. I live in a tiger area. And this child had not, labor pains had just started. And as many people here would know, it takes at least 24 hours, the first, what we call the primary gravidat, to actually go to labor pains and deliver the baby. So I thought, well, this is going to happen only tomorrow, let me come back next day. And very early in the next morning, I just started out to see this child. And on the way, while I was walking down, a very elderly woman stopped me and asked me, where are you off to at 6 in the morning? And she was concerned because I had to cross elephant area and go there to that hut. And I told her, oh, I'm going to deliver this Madhi. Madhi was her name. And she said, oh, you don't have to do that. She delivered last night. I was upset. My God. One great chance to prove that I'm a physician, and God had to undo my plans. But I somehow have to do something. I got to go there and reaffirm I'm a physician. So I thought, let me go to that house. Because medicine also taught me, the child is born, you got to make sure that you clean the umbilical stump and put antiseptic on it, clean the eyes, because in a traditional Indian rural community, mother's birth canals may not be very hygienic, so they may get eye infections, so you got to make sure that you put some eye drops in. I thought, oh, let me try that at least on this kid. Went to that hut. I can still remember the picture. This child was inside, not coming out. I was standing at the doorstep asking this 14-year-old, because her father was not there. So I was standing at the doorstep asking her to come and bring me the baby out. She kept on refusing. This went on for 5-10 minutes. I said, why don't you come and show me the baby? I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to drop a few drops in its eyes, make sure the umbilical stump is clean, and leave. She wouldn't listen. And after 10 minutes, I got, see, you must understand, 21, 22, angry, upset. Come on, I'm here to serve these guys. These guys don't want me to serve them. And agitation built in. After some time, I told her, if you are not going to come out bringing your baby, I'm going to get into the house and see the baby. In a typical traditional tribal village, you don't do that. You're not authorized to enter the village if the chief man doesn't allow you. And you're not authorized to enter the hut if the head of the family, the woman, doesn't allow you. And the head of the family was not allowing me inside. But then when I told that, what she told is very painful for me to repeat. She said, please don't come in. I have nothing to wear. This baby, this child, 14-year-old child, had one sari. Sari is a dress we wear, which she had soiled while delivering her own baby the previous night. Washed it in the middle of the night and put it on top of her hut, waiting for the sun to come out to dry that piece of cloth to wear it back again. So that incident has possibly changed and shaped my life. So whenever I lose faith in myself, in humanity, in people who support me, I keep telling me this incident. I tell that as long as there are young girls like this in India, my job is not done. There's so much to do and I got to keep doing it. I have been beaten up, I have been arrested by the police. When you fight for the poor, when you fight for the exploited, people don't like you, especially the government, if they are the principal exploiter. So they put you through a lot of stuff. Rich, powerful elements didn't want me there. They've tried everything. They tried to murder me, they tried all sort of stuff. But then when I feel disheartened, when I feel like giving up, I remember this young child. And I say, well, I'm not going to let this happen again to any other girl in this area. A country which worships womanhood and motherhood as goddesses, as God. The real meaning of that will come when Vivekananda's words of seeing God in man happens. And so that drives me, and I came to see God in every human being, and that drives my service activity. Life went on, I've lost my way. I lost my way a long time ago, and you get carried by your own projects. You build hospitals, you build schools, you get to be known, people write about you, books have been written about me, movies get made, and then you start believing all that's true. There's a very big danger in service. We get carried away by ourselves. We start taking ourselves more seriously than we deserve to. I remember an extraordinary incident in Mahatma Gandhi's life. My icons are Gandhi and Vivekananda. So our organization is based on the philosophies they proclaimed. Gandhi's is non-violence and truth, and Vivekananda's is service and sacrifice. So our organization's fundamental philosophy is to do our activities based on these pillars of what we call should drive humanity. And Gandhi was in jail. He was interviewed by I forget her name, a great photojournalist. I'm not even sure that the magazine still exists, called Life. A wonderful magazine, and she had come to India, and she loved Gandhi, she admired him, and her life was Gandhi for her. And so she's already passionately driven by him and his philosophy, and in the jail as she's interviewing him, she's like a young daughter mocking this grand old man. And she tells him, oh Gandhi, she doesn't say Gandhi, she can't pronounce it properly. People call you Mahatma. Mahatma in India means the great one, the exalted one, a great soul. They call you Bapu, father. He's considered the father of my country. They call you all this sort of stuff. What do you feel? She sort of childishly mocks him. And then Gandhi says, oh, all that doesn't matter. They can call me what they want. The danger comes when I start believing in what they're saying. I think that's extraordinary wisdom. And people can say what they want. Suddenly it hit me, my God, I've lost my way. The whole reason for me to do what I was doing was to discover myself. And I lost myself. But Gandhi has got a beautiful solution. He says, the only way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. And it looked as though Gandhi had written that for me. And Vivekananda writes in another place. He says, don't stand on a pedestal and say, here my poor man, take my 5 cents. Don't feel proud and happy that you're giving away money. But on the other hand, consider yourself privileged that God has given you an opportunity to serve another human being. I thought that was extraordinary wisdom. He also writes, I think he wrote it for me. He says, all the hospitals you build, all the schools you construct, can get washed away in one cyclone or crumble to dust in one earthquake. So don't think you're the doer. Consider yourself the instrument through which good gets done. So I suddenly woke up and I read this. I read it many times before, it meant nothing, but that time it meant a lot. It suddenly occurred to me, the hospitals I have built, the schools I have constructed didn't matter. Because I was not seeing them as an opportunity, or I was not seeing myself as an instrument through which good was getting done. I started believing I was doing the good. So the I became more important than the good that I was doing. So that was my learning, and then I woke up. Thankfully, I have not lost myself again. And now I believe that's an extraordinary journey of self-discovery. And what I'm doing now, a minute more? Yeah. I'll wrap it up with the last bit of what I'm doing now. I now travel around the world, mostly to the United States, once or twice a year, traveling to universities, talking to young people. Because I genuinely and legitimately believe that the future of the world, not just of any country, is in the hands of these young people. People who can see the distinction that they don't have to be bogged down by differences of color, gender, religion, nationality, political ideology, or geographical boundaries. Young people, they can reach out to each other and decide that they'll be global citizens in the true sense of the word. Believe and feel that they got to join hands together to make humanity a better place. I don't think there's a future for this world. The way we are ruining this world in every bit way that you can think of. The way we are dividing people in the name of all sorts of things. I just watched, very sad that a country like this, the debates have become so very ordinary now, including the presidential ones. No, there's so much that we can all do if we just join hands. Join hands not because of anything else, but for our own good. We can survive as a human race only when you think sustainability cannot be a slogan anymore. It's an absolute necessity. We got to discover ways to be peaceful, instead of discovering newer ways to kill each other. If we can spend our money, I was just reading an article in The Economist, it's on India, the last issue. And one of the articles tucked away in a corner is a brilliant American science that's now reduced the cost of smart bombs from $168,000 to $17,000. I was just telling myself, if that same brilliant American scientific mind could find out ways how we could connect, how we could reach out, how we can join hands together, how we could save this earth from human beings. I think that is the role of global citizens, and that's why I think my passion, my life now is to reach out and train people, young people, to become leaders of themselves first, master themselves, master people around them, and lead the world to a greater place that we all are dreaming about now. Thank you.
Very much for that moving presentation. Now we have time for questions. What are appropriate ways for more developed people to assist or work with undeveloped people in poverty?
Very provocative question to begin with. I don't agree with the way these terms are used in a very... It's only a benchmark that we use again. What do you mean by development? Most of us, the World Bank or UNDP says, and what do you mean by poverty? I think they are very funny words which economists have forgotten to define properly. And they only define from a level of their competence. So people say, if you earn less than $1 a day, you are extremely poor. And if you earn less than $1.25 a day, I don't know how 25 cents makes such a big difference, you are poor. No, I don't think poverty needs to be measured by just those terms. And if you learn how to get this, you're developing. I don't agree, so let me first define it my way, and then see that answer will match. To me, poverty is not lack of money. It's not income poverty alone. To me, poverty is a denial of opportunity. Opportunity of every kind that you can think of. And I think everywhere in the world, there are all kinds of people for whom opportunities are denied. And to me, in a different paradigm, development is not about providing these opportunities alone. It's specifically providing opportunities for an end outcome. And to me, development to me is a constant expansion of human capability. As long as mankind can constantly look at expanding our capabilities, it could manifest as more incomes, better education, better healthcare, better political thought, and all kinds of better things. Constantly as our capacities grow, capabilities of tolerance, capabilities of reciprocity, capabilities of interdependence, only then can we call a nation developed. So in the true sense of the word, I would like to not say we the developed and they the underdeveloped, because I don't think they're underdeveloped. Tribals are so advanced. So I believe if you, in some sense, were to just be narrow and to complete the question, articulate it as people with a little more money, what can we do to people with a lot less money? I would answer, go there to people with humility, Don't carry the white man's burden. Go there with the humility to learn. Live with people, learn from them. Build on what they know. And when the job is done and when they claim they did it themselves, just quietly disappear from the scene. If we can actually do that, then I think we truly are serving others.
So we have a more specific question now. Can you tell us more about the distinctions in culture, ways of life of the different tribal groups?
I work with 5 different tribal groups. In India, we have quite a few tribal communities. Like I said, 8% of our population is indigenous. And the groups I work with are 5. I work in a state in southern India called Karnataka, which is home to most of these major groups. And the district I work in, a district is something slightly larger than a county, maybe 3-4 counties put together, is where most of the indigenous people are located. It's a forest area. 1/3 of my district is national park. And these are 5 different groups. One is called the Kadu Kurubas. These are basically people, in the local language, it just means people of the forest, of the hills. So these are hill tribes who live off bamboo. So bamboo is their entire life. They eat bamboo, they use bamboo for houses, they use bamboo as a stick to drive away elephants, they make a lot of noise. You'll be surprised if you actually split the bamboo and beat it on your hand, it makes such a high decibel noise, it can actually scare away an elephant. I learned all this from the tribals. And these are wonderful people. They use bamboo for carrying their bows, they do everything with bamboo. Bamboo is their existence. Other community is called Jenu Kurubas, which Jenu means honey. For them, honey is everything. They live off honey. They gather honey, they eat the honey, they eat the pupa, the larva. They harvest honey very sustainably. Extraordinary communities. If a Jenu Kuruba tribal climbs up to take honey, he would never cut the entire hive. He would cut the bottom 2/3. Now, if you were a market guy, you will say you're stupid. The bottom 2/3 has got the least bit of honey in it. The top 1/3 is what the richest component honey. But that's exactly why he leaves it behind for the forest. He would take the queen bee out of the hive. He climbs up the tree. There are always 2 who go together. At the bottom, a guy will be waiting with a lot of teakwood leaves knitted together to make a big leaf and stands like this. This one guy would climb up, pull the queen out. She's a very harmless little bee there, and keeps it on his hand. And you can see all the other bees flocking and making a hive on his hand. Cuts the bottom 2/3, it will fall onto this guy below. Takes the queen back and puts it there. All the bees fly back. It's fun. But then look at what the message of sustainability is giving us. He's saying this honey is the hard work of these bees. I have no business to take it away. Just because I'm a little more powerful and can destroy that hive doesn't mean it's mine. So he says the best part of it is left behind for them. A little part of it is for me. He brings it down and look at the science behind it. He crushes the entire hive. The pupa, the larva, everything together. High quality protein. So God has got a way of teaching you to take care of yourself. Nutrition too. So he gets all the protein, animal protein he deserves there. At the same time, he keeps the population in check. Because forest doesn't have infinite number of flowers for these bees. Bees can populate very fast. So by destroying the pupa and larva there, he's cutting the population down. He's keeping it down. He gets his honey just enough. He leaves honey behind for the tree. He takes care that nature continues in perpetuity. And here we are teaching people maximize, maximize, maximize. Tragedy. And these are Jenu Kurubas. The 3 other groups are called Soligas, Bunde Soligas, and Erabas, who are mostly agriculturally driven. They are more they actually take into agriculture much better. And these 5 tribal groups have their own culture, their own anthropological background, their own ways of functioning, their own chieftains who lead their races. They're all very matriarchal and matrilineal. They don't intermarry. They only marry amongst their own sub-clans. They don't marry amongst the same clans, so genetically they keep some kind of purity, but it's not so pure. And so these communities suffer from sickle cell anemia and G6PD deficiency. They are both are genetic disorders born mostly because of intermarrying.
Well, very related to what you're saying, how do you convince the government of India, or any other government for that matter, to use the discoveries you have found among these people?
Tough job. Where do you think I got my grey hairs from? It's tough. It's very difficult. I used to do that in many ways earlier. I am a very active, as you might have heard from my talk, I'm very passionate. I was a very passionate activist. Unfortunately, my activism came from my emotions. I believed in something strongly and I would do it. But I don't think that's enough. But I did a lot. I used to sue the government, I used to fight the government, I've done quite a bit. That's why they don't like me. But then now I've changed. Sometimes Harvard can do miracles. So they invited me for fellowship. I spent some time there trying to find solutions to the problems I saw. And I went back and I started a new organization called GRAM. GRAM in Indian language just means a village. But it's actually an acronym. It stands for Grassroots Research and Advocacy Movement. What I'm now trying to do is get academicians and intelligent people and researchers around the world to believe in my dream. And I'm trying to get space for ordinary people in national and state policy. Trying to articulate people's aspirations in a language which the policymaker understands. Because that's finally the government matters. They are the ones who do policies. And how much ever I may shout, however shrill I may be, I might be liked in a church audience, but my government definitely not going to listen to me to all these arguments. So what I'm trying to do now is look at government policy empirically, build evidence to show that something is not working, or maybe something is working, might also be working, and go back and renegotiate with the evidence with the state to change policy, and get communities to do it, get the media to do it, get organized think tanks to do it. So it's something very crazy, very difficult, little more than a year old, but we've made substantial progress. I'm actually getting governments to wake up, and some of the governments are actually contracting me to study their policies now. So I must be doing a good job. So it shows that they are also interested. End of the day, it's not that governments are crooks, and I don't believe that anybody is bad. It's not that they are all wanting good for the people. Everybody wants good for everybody. So I fundamentally believe in the goodness of man. So there must be some good in these guys who want to bring about change. I'm just helping them bring the change better and faster. So I try to negotiate I moved away from emotional activism to evidence-based activism.
I guess related to that, do you work with the Grameen Bank at all?
I don't work with the Grameen Bank. Grameen Bank mostly works in Bangladesh, and they've just started a few microfinance operations in and around India. But in India, they have 2 million NGOs, so they just get submerged in that. But then Grameen Bank, I've been there, I've interacted a lot with them, I studied some of their works, I have great regard and admiration for much of the work they do, but not for all. And I tried to integrate what principles I could in our way of approaching. The closest I have come to Muhammad Yunus is, I remember the last journal of the Cornell Institute of Public Affairs, they interviewed me and Muhammad Yunus together and put our interviews together. So that's the closest I got there. But I believe that microfinance is also a very old and very time-tested tool in India. I don't like microfinance. I prefer self-help. That's what I started off doing, and I do it. Because I believe poor should be trained to help the poor. You can't make money out of the poor. A lot of recent microfinance institutions are actually making wealth out of poverty. And that's something which disturbs me. So my interview there describes with evidence what I'm saying here.
For the last question, a more philosophical one, is technology part of the answer or part of the problem?
I think it's both. It's not about the technology, it's about the man behind the technology and how you use it, how you deploy it. Now if you want to deploy it to be part of a solution, it's an extraordinary piece of stuff you can use. Well, if you want to use it for narrow, personal, selfish gains, it can become an instrument of evil. It's all about how we use it. It's like electricity. You can use it to light up a room. You can use it to kill a man in prison. So it's up to us to decide what to do with it. I don't believe, I'm not a romanticist to say everything technological is stupid and useless. I don't. And I'm not. I never subscribe to it. I believe that there's a middle path for everything. A very balanced, moderate approach is what can serve this world. Let's be practical and pragmatic too. Can we get from point A to point B without flying or driving in a car? And then you can't criticize fossil fuels. You can go in a buggy, but how far can you go? So we got to be realistic. At the same time, can we look at how do we sustain some of the things we're doing? Can we make it practical? Can we balance it out? So I believe in what my religious textbook talks about. The Bhagavad Gita is our Bible. It says it's not extremes, but moderation, everything in which you can find solutions. And I genuinely believe in that. Thank you all so much. It was a great
thanks to yours for a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much for coming. I also want to remind you about our sponsors, University of Iowa's international programs, University of Iowa's honors program, University of Iowa Community Credit Union and Midwest Bank One. Dr. Balu, as a small token of our appreciation, we're going to present you with the coveted Iowa City Foreign Relations Council mug. Thank you so much. With our thanks. Wonderful, wonderful.